Hi everybody, I hope you're enjoying your summer vacation so far, and for those of you who are working or in school, I hope that those things are going well and productively. I wanted to share with you a short idea that ties together both the message of the 3 weeks and this week's Parshat Pinchas. In Masechet Yoma, there's a famous idea that's brought down that discusses the reasons for the destruction of both the first Beit HaMikdash and the second. And of course we know that the first Beit HaMikdash was destroyed because of Shvichut Damim, Gilui Arayot, and Avodah Zarah, right? Of unnecessary bloodshed, of sexual immorality, and of idol worship. And the second Beit HaMikdash was destroyed because of Sinat Chinam. And Chazal equate the two. They say that we know that Sinat Chinam is just as bad as the first three because of the fact that the second Beit HaMikdash was destroyed because of it. And that seems very puzzling at first glance, because how could you say that Sinat Chinam is as bad as Shvichut Damim, Avodah Zarah, and Gilui Arayot? Seems sort of strange. And I'll tell you the message that's brought down. The idea is that because in the second Beit HaMikdash, Bnei Israel had the appearance of frumkeit, right? And this is a famous idea, I'm sure a lot of you know, because Bnei Israel had the appearance of frumkeit. They had Yirat they had Yirat Shamayim, they were doing the mitzvah ben adam l'makom, they were as frum can be. But inside their hearts, they were filled with hatred, they were filled with jealousy, they were filled with corruption. So Mida Keneged Mida, measure for measure, Hashem sent an enemy to destroy them that had those same qualities, right? Bnei Israel, for the second Beit HaMikdash, it was destroyed by the Romans. And the Romans, to the outside eye, were like this very, very well-developed, advanced society. But really, underneath, they were immoral and rotten to the core. And so Hashem says, Bnei Israel, because you on the outside looked one way, but really your hearts were full of hatred, I'm going to send you an enemy that reflects that. And even more, that idea of not being consistent on the inside and on the outside, that manifests itself in the hatred of one Jew to another, is so terrible that it was equivalent to those big three averot of Shvichut Damim, Gilui Arayot, and Avodah Zarah. And therefore Hashem said, this is cause for my Beit HaMikdash to be destroyed and for Bnei Israel to go into Galut once again. How does this tie into our Parsha? Well, it's simple. In our Parsha, we have two beautiful ideas, two beautiful examples of just the opposite of this that we can learn from. The first one comes from Pinchas, who we know really at the end of last week's Parsha is when Pinchas takes up his sword and he kills Cozbi and Zimri. But in this Parsha, he gets a great reward from Hashem. Hashem gives him a brit shalom. And what does that mean? That means that Hashem recognized that Pinchas himself was maybe changed and influenced because of his actions, and he wanted to ensure that he kept his quality of peace and love. Now, how does it work this way? Because Pinchas, Chazal tell us that Pinchas's motivations were so pure. He wasn't at all in it for himself. He saw something terrible happening, and he said, I can't let this happen because this is an affront to Hashem. And as well as an affront to Hashem, he saw that there's this terrible plague going on. Bnei Israel are dying. And he says, I need to do something to stop this. Because if I don't, the rest of Klal Yisrael is just going to perish. And so he does what he needs to do. He takes up arms and he kills Cozbi and Zimri. And the lesson in this, now again, this is a don't try this at home lesson. And Chazal tell us that there's really no one who can stand in the place of Pinchas. And his motivations can never be... one can never be sure that they have as pure motivations as Pinchas did. But that a person can say, wow, Pinchas, out of his love for Klal Yisrael, did something that was so excruciatingly difficult that Hashem had to come and give him this brit shalom. Even more so, another example, one of my favorites, we see the idea of Moshe passing on and giving smicha to Yehoshua, who's going to take over for him. And a famous question is asked, how could Moshe do this? Wasn't he upset that one of his own children wasn't going to merit being the next leader of Klal Yisrael? So I read a beautiful idea by Nechama Leibowitz once, who she brings down this idea that no, that's Moshe Rabbeinu, that's Ava Chinam, that Moshe understood that Hashem felt that Yehoshua was the proper leader for Bnei Israel, and therefore when he handed over the reins of leadership, when he did smicha on Yehoshua, he did it belev shalem, full of simcha. And we know there's a flip side to this, that Yehoshua, when he accepted the mantle of leadership, Yehoshua knew that he was not going to be a leader on the same plane as Moshe Rabbeinu. And we know Chazal say that Moshe Rabbeinu is like the sun and Yehoshua is like the moon. And Yehoshua says, you know what? I'm okay with being the moon. It's a compliment to be with being the moon. He didn't harbor any jealousy in his heart that he wasn't a clone of Moshe, that he wasn't the sun. He was happy with his chelek, and he was happy to be the moon. And those are two examples that are the opposite of the terrible behavior of Bnei Israel in the time of Beit Sheni. Whereas on the outside, everything looked perfect, but on the inside, it was terrible. Here we see that there are two examples, Pinchas and Moshe, where both their insides and their outsides were full of pure intention and motivation. I'd like to just close with a quick story. We were fortunate enough to have a group of Chayalim at our table for Shabbos, at our house for Shabbos this past week. And I'll tell you something that really struck me. They came into our house, and yes, they were from Hakotel. They came into our house, and some of them were so exhausted. They'd literally been up for 24 hours straight. And we had the most beautiful dinner that went on with singing and Torah and just great conversation. And after dinner was over, like, I was a little pooped and had wanted to head off to bed. And the guys are just sitting, spending time with each other. And then the next morning, everyone got up, went to shul, and then in between shul and lunch, they're all hanging out, learning, talking, again, same thing. And finally, during lunch, I said to them, guys, aren't you so tired? You're spending all this time, hanging out, but don't you want to, that's nice, but don't you want to go take a nap? Some of you you have to be so tired, and you have another grueling week of basic training before you. And they said such an amazing thing. They looked at each other with such obvious affection, and they said, we're just going to be tired no matter what. But this Shabbos is so special because we haven't seen each other in a month. We haven't learned with each other. We haven't joked with each other. We haven't enjoyed each other's company in a month. And that's really precious, and we don't want to waste a minute of it. And I thought, wow, that is such a special idea. And what a beautiful idea to take into us at the beginning of the 3 weeks. That's avat chinam. That's the desire to look at our friends and to say, I can get so much from being with you, from sharing time with you, from being in your company. That can give me so much chizuk, and I know that I can give you so much chizuk, that's beautiful and that's worth literally sacrificing for. And I think that one of the things that we know that all of us at Tiferet share is that we have deep connections, and my bracha to us all is that this summer should be time to really reconnect and do that. To that end, you'll see attached to this email is my phone number in America, and I hope to be in touch with many of you as I'm there. Give a call, send an email. I'll be calling and emailing as well, and hopefully we'll even have some time to get together. But I look forward to being in touch, and whatever you're doing for this summer, everyone should try to set aside some time to really reconnect and enjoy the beautiful relationships that began your year when you were here at Tiferet.